So, you want to learn to write a speech like a Peaky Blinder, do you? Stick it down, boys and girls. That's exactly what we're going to do today. Ha! Welcome to Eat Loud. My name is Richard Mulholland. I'm the founder and chief evangelist of Presentation Powerhouse Missing Link. Now, every week on this channel, we try to provide you with some tools and tips to make you a better speaker, which makes you a better person. This week is no different. However, the way we're doing it this week is a little bit different. You see, I was on a plane the other day and I was watching season 6, episode 2 of my all-time favorite TV show, Peaky Blinders. And in it, Cillian Murphy delivered a speech as Tommy Shelby that was so good that the second I watched it, I paused it. I knew, I have to do a video on this. It is an absolute masterclass. So this video is going to be a little bit longer because we're going to break down that speech bit by bit, but I promise you it will be worth your while. There are so many gems in this speech that it's actually worth breaking it down into small little sections because every one of those is a tool that you can utilize to give yourself an unfair advantage in your next big presentation. So that's what we're going to do. One little thing before we start, there are no major plot points revealed in this clip. So if you're not completely up to date and you haven't seen this episode, I wouldn't worry too much. Obviously, if you really want to have a spoiler-free, bookmark this and watch it later. But with that said, let's get into the speech.
Comrades, your Labour representative for South Birmingham, Mr. Tommy Shelby, MP.
They're digging.
I bring with me, on the train from London.
Before we get into what he brings with him on a train from London, let's take a moment to consider the power of that opening. He walked onto stage and he himself said nothing, but he said so much. The intention in which he delivered and changed hands really took a time to pause, to set himself for his audience, to set everything up. The audience was cheering, they were going big, but he really got them to exactly where he wanted them. I'm going to talk to you a lot about this. I want you to be aware of the emotional altitude shifts that he makes throughout this speech. And he started shift number 1 by taking from that opening applause and bringing it down with the use of this sign. Now, I bring with you on the train from London
A message from Westminster. No, not a message. Not a message. An instruction, in fact.
Okay, now, just wonderful use of language here. It's not just that he said an instruction. Now, nobody wants to be told what to do. People certainly do not want to be told to be silent, and they absolutely do not want to be told to be silent by politicians from Westminster. But the way he framed this was so smart because he didn't come on and say, I bring with you an instruction from Westminster. He said, I bring with you a message. No, not a message, an instruction. So what he did is he took a big spotlight and he shone that spotlight on the difference between what a message would be and what an instruction would be. And of course, if you're in the audience, all you can look at is the subject of that spotlighting. So that little difference, by deciding to walk on and talk about something being a message, but then saying, no, wait, it's not, it's an instruction. He totally took his audience to a completely different place. And again, nobody likes being told what to do. So this is a really powerful way to start. Let's continue.
You must be silent. You must say nothing. Say nothing about the present situation in this city. Say nothing about hunger. Say nothing about jobs. Say nothing about pay. But those in greener pastures, they may speak.
All right. So what we're seeing here is a rhetorical device referred to as an anaphora. This is when the beginning of a phrase is repeated at the start of subsequent clauses. So the most famous one for many people would be Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I have a dream. I have a dream today. I have a dream." Rolling over and over and over again. Let freedom reign. You know, he utilized that very, very well in Anaphora in that, of course, iconic speech. Another one would be Winston Churchill's "We shall fight." You know, we shall fight in the seas. We shall fight in the skies. By doing that, I want you to imagine what they've done there. They've taken a phrase that could be broken by commas. So, for example, if I said, "I want to say this and that and the next thing." But if I reframe that with an anaphora, it would be, "I want to say this and I want to say that and I want to say the next thing." And what you're doing is you're putting more emphasis on each of those points. It gives it a whole lot of gravitas and really, really builds it up. So next time you're thinking about some part in your speech, ask yourself, can you use an anaphora to actually break the phrasing of what it is you're trying to say to give it more power?
They may speak. They may raise their voices. But here in this smoke, you men and women, Irish and Italian and English, who support the socialist cause. And the socialist cats and dogs and canaries.
All right, now it seems like I'm stopping all the time, but there's just so much, so many layers. What he's just done here is another great rhetorical tool, and it's called creating a commonplace. So Irish, Italian, English, in lots of other circumstances, they would not be united. But you see what he's done here? Notice, he hasn't spoken about himself at all yet. First thing he did is he drew attention to them, but now it's you, you, you. And every one of those yous, he has joined them and brought them together. So now he's grouped them as one group of socialists. He's, united them with a common enemy. This common enemy. And it's so powerful. When you're trying to engage an audience, a disparate group, what you want to try and find is build a relationship. So one of the common places you can build is a relationship. Now between yourself and the audience, and you and the audience, and something else. It could be the subject, or in this case, it could be the man. And when you can find that, it can be incredibly powerful and a really great way to start. I remember I was doing a talk in Guadalajara. It was to a group of people from all over South America, Latin America, North America, multiple countries, multiple languages. It was my first time speaking in the area, and I was a bit nervous. And I wanted to create a commonplace. And the first commonplace that I got to was, I mentioned the fact it was unfortunately my son's birthday. I was going to miss it. I got everybody saying happy birthday. So we were, parents, a lot of us. The next thing I mentioned, though, was the fact that we were all connected in this love of entrepreneurship. We're all part of the same entrepreneurial organization called EO. Now, this commonplace all of a sudden separated or united everybody. So, and it separated us from others. So all of a sudden, I wasn't this like silly guy with a strange accent and spiky hair with like tattoos and things. I was one of them. The commonplace was parents and entrepreneurs. And after that, I'd won them over. And then I was able to do my work.
You must hush, because the king and all the king's horses and all the king's men.
See how he whispered? What he's now doing is he's controlling what we refer to as one of the 4 P's of delivery, and that is his pitch. He is taking them up and he's bringing them down. And by doing that, it's so powerful because when you whisper, when you slow down, quieten down your voice and whisper, your audience will naturally lean in. You can use this so well. And it really, again, remember I was talking about that emotional altitude, up and down, up and down. Watch where he takes it from here.
I want you to be silent. But it is you, my friends, who must suffer the cuts in wages and in welfare and in dignity. And you must not complain, because that would be unpatriotic. You soldiers who have fought in France.
Look what he's doing here. This is the second of the P's I want you to look at. Pose. And it's the body language, so to speak. But I think it's more than just body language, because it's your eyes, it's everything. There's so many things to it. But you see what he's doing? He's pointing and he's provoking and he's saying, you. Now, when he does that, it's not him poking and prodding, is it? No, what he's done is he said, I don't have the baddies here. So as a presenter and as a speaker, I will embody them. And then as the person who isn't represented, he provokes and he points and he accuses and he, just goes over and over again. And this use of pose and structure and posturing that he's doing basically riles up the audience and makes them angry at this person who hasn't even showed up yet.
In France, you are traitors if you speak up. You veterans of their wars and their booms and their busts. It is you who must take the blows and carry the burdens for the sake of those in greener pastures who bellow at you. Silence! Well, watch this, comrades. I will not be silent. Not this Englishman.
All right, so you see what he's done there. First of all, the very first shift to I. Now it's him. I will not be silent, not this Englishman. And then he takes the sign. He takes the embodiment of the enemy, of all the people, and he rips it apart in front of them and beautifully, flippantly throws it behind him like that. This symbolism is absolutely incredible. He's now shifting, so he's given them a reason to care at the beginning. And look how long that's taken, right? A lot of people just try, we always try and sell that you want to give people a reason to care. It's a big part of our action framework. I'm going to include a link to videos here that you should definitely go through. But he starts off giving them this reason to care. Only halfway through the speech does he start giving a reason to believe. And we always say it's the smallest possible gesture you can do, the Goldilocks, if you will. His entire reason to believe is that the way he ripped up this sign, and maybe the next phrase as well.
No silence for me! No silence for me, because I have heard your voices when you come to me and tell me about the cries of your hungry children. And I will gather up every single one of those cries and I will take them with me on the train back to Westminster. And I will let them out of the bag in the House of Commons and let them try and silence that, eh?
Wow. I have heard the cries of your children. I've listened to them. I've put them in a bag, carried them with me to the House of Commons and unleashed those cries of those children onto that audience. Let them try, ignore them then, right? No wonder you're getting a reaction like this. It reminds you the visual. No, why I'm bringing this up. This is a form of metaphor. Now, this is a great rhetorical tool. Of course, it's so common today that we don't think about it that way. It's just a kind of English language thing. But we often don't understand just how powerful they can be. He could have said, I've taken notes of all the complaints that you have about your hungry children, and I've written it into my notebook, and I promise you that I will present your case forward when I go back to the House of Commons. How does that compare to filling a bag, a sack with the cries of their children and unleashing it? You can almost imagine like a Harry Potter scene where, these things are flying out and shouting at people like those, those letters that come in and scream at the children. That's what he's done there. That's the power of metaphor. English, literal English, doesn't always have the power to deliver what a great metaphor can. And look at the reaction. It works.
That involved some sharing of the burden. All of us taking a smaller slice of the cake, eh? After all, it's bloody us who bakes the cake and makes the cars and melts the metal. And the king, remember him? The man who ordered all of this. Shouldn't he be taking some of the cuts? Hey, some of the blow? Hey! Yes!
Okay, now let's take a second to see what happened here. This is what we refer to as the pre-build. When I want to lead up to the end of a presentation, I want to build up and earn my applause. That's called a peroration. We're going to get to that in a second. But just prior to that peroration, I want to try and get my audience up to a point where they're almost peaking and then bring them back down again and then raise them up higher. This is what he's doing here. But how does he get them there to that height? It's like the intervals in interval training. Short, sharp, little punches with breaks. Little punches with breaks. Lift, lift, lift. These small little phrases. Small little phrase. Small little phrase. Everyone taking them a little bit higher. There's no soliloquies here. There's no long drawn out sentences. It's 1-2 punch, right? Over and over and over again. Each time letting it's the call and response relationship with his audience. He is driving them to respond, to cheer. He's egging them on. Right, getting them up to the top. But of course, now he has to bring them down. So how does he do that? Well, he does it with the 4th P. Pause. Now, this isn't the first time he's paused effectively in this speech, and if you watch it again, you'll see more of them. But the use of that pause is so powerful. Again, you're rallied up, your heart is pounding. You just want to hear this. You want to get to the end. You're like an uncaged animal. You want to just be released in the world. You're a caged animal? You're a caged animal. You want to be released in the world. But he pauses. And you got to take a breath. You got to relax again. Your heart rate has got to come down again. And when it does, then he doesn't let you get all the way down because he doesn't want to baseline you again. He wants to get you to a point, and then he wants to start building you up again. And that's exactly what he does here as he kicks into, let's call it the spiritual 5th P, the peroration.
Hush, you working men and women. Silence. Good. Save your voices. You're gonna need them. On Saturday when we rally together at the Bullring Market. And together we'll raise the roof. Break the damn silence. And bring down this broken government.
That peroration, that build, did you notice in there he had pace, pitch, pause, and pose. All of those were included in that small, short little bite. Now, traditionally, a peroration is around 12 seconds of build and build and build and build at the end of a speech. Ladies and gentlemen, and that's why when we walk out, we can see and build that up. Now, if there was one little thing that I would have maybe added to, I would have added maybe a couple of seconds to that peroration. I think it could have built a bit longer. Possibly television restrictions that actually limited it. I would have liked to see a little bit more of a step in there. In fact, you could have included an amazingly powerful rhetorical device called an Antimetabole. Many famous ones like that, you know, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. Or ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. That phrase by JFK was so powerful that it actually almost goes against his political leanings, right? It sounds very conservative as a message, and yet we all just eat it up because it sounds so good. Antimetaboles, which are a subset of chiasmus, they're so good, and I felt like one of those could have been included there. The other thing that I would have liked was I would have liked him to end on the very word he started on. So I've kind of rephrased it slightly, and forgive me for the accent, but here's kind of how I maybe would have reworked just the phrasing of that final peroration. Shh. Hush, you working men and women. Silence. Save your voices. You will need them on Saturday when we rally together at the Bullring Market, and we will let them know that it is not the politicians that will silence the people, but the people that will silence the politicians. We will rally together and we will raise the roof and bring down this broken government. Then they can have their damn silence. All right, so there you have it. That's the speech. I hope you agree that it's every bit as incredible as I thought it was. I want to just now take a moment to break down and to summarize the key points. At Missing Link, we always say that you write a good talk before you design it, before you deliver it. So I want to go in and have a quick look at that around those 3 areas. Let's start with the talk that was written. The way he began with that reason to care. He then went on to the reason to believe. He then told them what they needed to know, the information, the people built them up. And then finally, he told them what they needed to do. Meet me on Saturday where we rally at the Bullring Market. They knew exactly what was expected of them and when they were expected to do it. It was very, very simple. Just meet me there. right? We're going to tear down the government. He didn't go into detail. He didn't give them a plan. Just show up. And of course, they would. So that was an amazing structure. Now, including things like the metaphor and the anaphora, those little devices, writing those into the speech, understanding the way the narrative would flow, the ups and downs. Oh, just absolutely brilliant. This brings me to number 2. Now, normally, I would say that the MVP of a great speech is either what is written or what is delivered. But in this case, the MVP of that speech was this: silence. Was this not one of the most powerful single visual aids you've ever seen? Think about how much work this one word on one sheet of paper had to do. Incredible. Now, I'm of the belief that a presentation or talk with some form of visual support will almost always be superior to one that lacks them. It may not be easier for you, but it's certainly easier for the audience. It may not even seem easier for the audience at the moment, but it is absolutely easier for the future versions of that audience to recall and remember. And for me, a great talk, if you want to write a great talk, what's actioned is more important than what's repeated, is more important than what's remembered, is more important than what's recited. So we want to climb them up the ladder, and visuals help with that. Well, this would have been spoken about. They would not have wanted to be silenced, and that would have driven them to action. This small little visual, small little prop was so wonderful. Other great examples of prop use as visual aids would, of course, be the famous scene when Bill Gates opened the jar with a mosquito and let the mosquito out at TED, or also at TED when Jamie Oliver dumped that sugar representing how much kids would eat all over the stage. You can utilize props and, of course, your visuals and your slides very, very effectively, just like Tommy did. And then finally, delivery. His pace, his pitch, his pause, his pose, and his peroration. All of these brought together over and over and over again, constantly saying, how can I change my pace? Where can I pause? How can I change my pose to be me, 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 you, you, you? These poses did so much. They were another visual aid, another part of the visual experience. And then, of course, his personal delivery, the way he did it, was just an absolute masterclass. So I hope you take some of these ideas, and next time you're writing a speech or a presentation, and rest assured, you need to write that speech or presentation. You don't have to deliver it from a script, but you do have to make sure that you've taken the time to craft it. That could be the difference between raising that funding or not, between winning that deal, between wowing that audience. And I hope that all of you one day will get an opportunity to wow an audience like Tommy Shelby. All right, there you have it. Everything you need to know to unleash your inner Tommy Shelby on an audience near you. But now this, if you bore them to death with your cluttered slides or your bullets, we will find you and we will hold you accountable. By order of Presentation Powerhouse Missing Link and the Peaky Blinders.